Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
Okay, today we are going to talk about the historic NAR settlement with DOJ and all these other people about realtor commissions. Okay, we're not going to talk about the legal side of it. We're going to talk about the economic side.
Yes.
Like, so what does this look like going forward and how economically this works?
So the bottom line is, how does this work for buyers and sellers, and who does it benefit?
Yeah, that's good. Good summary. Okay, so let's start with the headline. Now, this is one. There's numerous articles out there. That a bunch of people talk about it.
So all these people, by the way, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but they're not practitioners. I don't even know if they've ever owned a house, let alone sold a house. So please give us a chance, and we'll talk to you about what's going on and what impact this has on you, because the articles that I've read are woefully inadequate. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is a headline. The 6% commission on buying or selling a home is gone after Realtors Association agrees to seismic settlement. So let's first start here. It says buying or selling. Does this mean that each side pays 6% to their agent?
According to them,
okay,
perhaps, but in the real world, no.
Okay, we'll roll this back a little bit. You and I, is people who watch our show all the time, we have sold over 3,000 houses.
Yes.
Now, those were all listings.
Yes.
All like 95% were listings. There's a couple, friends, family, investors maybe, but everything else is a listing.
Correct.
We pretty much just have done listings. How many of the 3,000 can you remember where we actually got $6,000, or 6% commission?
Zero.
Okay, why is that? How is that? What is that 6%? How is that? Like, how do we traditionally deal with that? How does that work?
So most of the time, the way that works is the listing agent retains a portion and the balance is paid to the buyer's agent, whatever that looks like. It's not always evenly split. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not 6%. Sometimes it's 4%. Sometimes it's 5%. Sometimes it's 6%. Sometimes it's more. So all of that is negotiable. But at the end of the day, whatever the listing agent has negotiated with the seller, that's what the seller has agreed to pay. And then whatever that amount is, the listing agent then shares whatever portion the listing agent has determined to be shared publicly in the MLS with the buyer's agent. So the way that works is the listing agent places whatever amount they're going to pay the buyer's agent in the MLS, so the buyer's agent knows on the front end how much the compensation is. Now, that is not set in stone, so I want to make that really clear. So even though the MLS might say that the buyer's agent is getting paid X amount or X percent, that's not set in stone. There are times when that gets renegotiated. So because we all try to act in the best interest of our client. So sometimes there's not quite the deal that the buyer and the seller need, and the agents a lot of times will go ahead and help out to make the deal happen. So all of that, where that leaves us is that, for example, in Las Vegas, average commissions are 2.5%. Okay, and that's the reason, is because the commissions are variable to begin with, and then on top of that, we negotiate during the transaction to keep the deal together, and that's how we end up there.
Okay, so how this specifically is going to be implemented is, and then we'll go through some more parts of the article here. Actually, let me do this. Let me read this, and then I'll talk about the actual because we just got communication how this is going to work. Okay. It says the NAR, which is like the Facebook. This is grammatically incorrect. It's just NAR. Okay, NAR, which represents, that would be like calling it the CNN. The CNN, the cable news network, the NAR. Okay, I won't tell you what paper did this, but anyway, or online. Okay, the NAR, which represents more than 1 million realtors, also agreed to put in place a set of new rules. We'll go through these individually. After I read them all. One prohibits agents' compensations from being included on listings placed on local centralized listing portals and multiple listing services, which critics say led brokers to push more expensive properties on customers. So there's a couple things in there. Like I said, we're going to go back after I read the whole thing. Another ends requirements that brokers subscribe to multiple listing services, many of which are owned by NAR subsidiaries, where homes are given a wide view in a local market. Another new rule will require buyer brokers to enter into written agreements with their buyers required now. You have to do it. Okay, let's start with the actual implementation. Okay. So we were just told, guys, you can't put a commission to the other agent, but you can put how many percentage or dollars or whatever of closing costs for the buyer. The seller is willing to pay the buyer. Now that doesn't mean you can't at some other point when you get an offer do more, right?
Negotiate.
But that's a new field that we're at. So we're taking away the co-op, the field of commission that is going to be, it's guaranteed basically to the buyer agent, with a new field called, hey, this is Mr. Buyer, this is how much we'll pay you for whatever you want to do with it in closing costs. Okay? So we'll just jump in here first. We'll go to the very bottom. It says, a new rule will require buyer brokers to enter into written agreements with their buyers. Okay, Oana, you are now a buyer. You show up, you are trying to find an agent to tell, what is a buyer broker agreement, and how does like under the current model, because we've always had these, how does the buyer broker agreement work?
Okay, so two things. One, the National Association of Realtors has always said that all agreements between realtors and their clients have to be in writing. So, by that standard, buyer-broker agreements should have always been used. Now, what a buyer-broker agreement is, it's an agreement between the buyer and his agent regarding services and compensation. Just like a listing agreement is an agreement between the agent and the seller regarding services and compensation. So it's the same kind of thing. The idea now is that somehow this will be enforced. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. There are markets in which, as a buyer broker, you have to send in the offer with your buyer broker agreement in order for you to be compensated. Those markets are very few, but there are markets like that.
So they're already doing this.
Yes.
They literally already do this.
So, but very few markets do that. So the question is, are more markets going to do that? We'll have to wait and see. Okay,
so here's the thing I find is hilarious. Let's say, we'll just pick a number. You have a $500,000 house. And I say, hey, Mr. Seller, no longer 6% is 3%. That's what you pay my brokerage. You pay us to represent you and do all this stuff. He's like, great, I just saved 3%. Now, we're going to we might have to offer up to a certain amount of closing costs for the buyer for whatever, a loan fees and some other fees or whatever. Maybe they're buyer broker agreement fees.
Okay.
He goes, okay, well, we'll offer some money for that too. Then the buyer, now you're a buyer and you've just agreed to hire an agent and pay 8%, 2 or 3%, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're agreeing for them to pay that to the agent if you buy a house. If you don't buy a house, maybe there's some other thing. We'll talk about that. So when you write your offer, the buyer agent is going to write that we'll pay $500,000, seller to pay 3% of gross sales price towards buyer's closing costs. The buyer closing costs, that money is going to then pay the commission, right? And so the seller is no longer paying 6% in commissions. He's now paying, in this example, 3% in commissions, 3% in closing costs, but not commissions. It's a closing cost. Goes through the buyer, then to the agent. The agents still get 3%, and everybody pats themselves on the back and says, "Oh my God, look at all the money we just saved everybody because."
So wait a minute. So in this example,
okay,
I want to point out who gets hurt.
Who gets hurt?
So let me tell you who gets hurt.
Okay.
The buyer gets hurt.
Why is that?
Let me explain. So if the buyer is financing, per most lender guidelines, the most that a seller can contribute to the buyer's closing costs is 3%. So if the buyer needed money for his regular closing costs, not what he owes his agent, now that money is off the table because he's got to pay his agent first. So under the old model, the seller paid the agents and then paid 3% to the buyer to help him with his loan and close the deal. But now the buyer no longer has access to the additional funds to help his loan go through. So that's who gets hurt under this model is buyers.
Okay.
One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
One more thing.
Would you believe?
Would you believe? Yes.
If you know what that's from, would you believe? Then put it in the comments.
Right.
But if you're not like this, you probably don't know.
Okay.
You don't have the gray hair.
So there are two types of buyers that are hurt the most by all of this. And that's VA buyers and FHA buyers. And the reason I say that is because these are the buyers who generally have the least cash available when it comes to purchasing a home. They tend to be, well, the FHA buyers tend to be first-time buyers, VA not always. But these are the buyers that generally have the least cash available, because remember, these are the least down payment programs. Like a VA buyer is going to be able to come in with zero down, and an FHA buyer is going to be able to come in with 3.5% down. Now, the VA buyer, the VA loan program specifically forbids the VA loan borrower to pay any commissions.
Any commissions?
Any commissions. So does this mean that VA people don't get representation?
Well, how is it possible if this government is saying the buyer has to pay his own way, and the VA is saying the buyer is not allowed to pay commissions, so VA buyers just have to figure that they literally are not legally allowed to hire a real estate agent. That's what they're saying.
Right.
Okay.
And then again, the FHA buyer, because they're only coming in with 3.5% down, they're not likely to have money to pay an agent, and they are the most likely buyer to ask for closing costs so that they can have their loan go through. So these are the two groups of people that are most harmed by this, and these are the groups that are most vulnerable. This is what I always say on the videos is the people at the bottom are the ones who always get hurt. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way by calling people at the bottom, but these are the people who are the first-time buyers, the entry people who are probably first-time buyers. So that's why I call them the people at the bottom. Now, the people in all the rest of the categories are either previous homeowners, or they have more money, or they have more wherewithal to deal with all of this than these people. And so this is why I think this scenario that is unfolding is very harmful to these people.
They are financially undocumented. Okay, here's another thing that I laughed at that's in that paragraph. Another ends requirements that brokers subscribe to the MLS, many of which are owned by NAR subsidiaries, where homes are given a wide viewing in local markets. So they're going to take this single marketplace. We have one single marketplace called the MLS, which all realtors and a lot of non-realtors all use as a single marketplace. They're going to let people split off into their own little bitty marketplaces. So if you want to go for a house, you may have to actually go to a bunch of different marketplaces.
Okay, so let me illustrate this. So if you want to buy a house, now it's like saying, okay, so I'm going to go on Nextdoor and see what houses are available there. I'm going to go on OfferUp and see what houses are available there. I'm going to go on Facebook Marketplace, see what houses are available there. And this goes for everywhere. Now, can you imagine if you had to search for a home that way? How inefficient is that? How likely are you going to miss the home that's the best suited for you?
Yeah. The other thing people say is, but Zillow. I'll just go on Zillow because Zillow has, I actually had a client say this once, I have no idea, but Zillow has all the listings. How does Zillow get their listings?
So two things. Zillow does not have all the listings, but what Zillow does have is they have direct feeds from the MLS. Zillow's data is also inaccurate because they don't scrape it often enough. So you end up with properties that have either sold or have accepted offers but still show as available. Again, not efficient, not all the homes. But Zillow is not going to be able to survive under this model unless they pivot and find another way to make money, because under this under the current model that existed before Friday, Zillow sold your information every time you went on Zillow to buyer's agents. But if buyer's agents' compensation is now in question, they're neither going to have the incentive nor the money to pay Zillow for your information so that they can sell you a house.
And in some effect, it kills the network effect for Zillow, because if they don't have all the houses, people don't go just to Zillow or just to Realtor.com. And an agent's not going to pay $800 a month to be in one zip code with 5 other agents if they're not going to get, because in the current model, they're going to get maybe 2 or 3% commission for selling a home. So now they're going to be like, I ain't paying Zillow. It's not worth it. What am I paying for, really, if I have to fight now? But I want to talk about this next quote, because this really kind of surprised me. By some estimates, real estate commissions are expected to fall 25 to 50%, according to TD Cohen Insights. This will open up opportunities for alternative models of selling real estate that already exist but don't have much market share, including flat fee and discount brokerages. Oana, if there was all this actual collusion economically, like a cartel, like OPEC, wouldn't it be even easier for discount brokers to come in and say, hey, we're a discount broker, we only charge 4%.
Okay, so
What if you take away the money from the system economically, how does it make it easier for these companies? It actually makes it easier for flat fee and discount brokerages if commission rates are going up, because now there's more of a financial incentive for people to look for a cheaper alternative.
correct. I mean, look, Redfin was that way, right? Redfin would kick back money. Redfin did that.
Right.
So you would think that that Redfin would dominate the market. You would think that there would be many companies that followed Redfin's model, and that wasn't the case. There are already lots of companies that are discount companies that do it for a flat fee or for a nominal amount. But the point of those companies isn't for them to list homes for next to nothing. The point of those companies is for them to attract buyers and then make their money from the buyers. Now, if the buyer agent compensation is in question, then those types of business models no longer work.
Yeah, I actually know somebody that owned one of these type of brokerages. They listed for a small amount. And I asked him, like, how do you make money? He goes, oh, we lose money like crazy on the listing side, but we get a ton of buyer transactions where we make the 3%. We make all of our money to cover all of our losses. Like we make money. So if you take away the money, you also take away those discount flat fee brokerages. Now, here's another thing. It says commissions are going to fall 25, 50%. If you take money out of commissions, does that mean you have more real estate agents fighting for less money or less real estate agents?
You have less real estate agents, and you also have less represented buyers. And when a buyer is not represented, what happens? Well, first of all, they are less likely to find the right home for them because it's just difficult for them to do it on their own. They don't know how the process works. They don't have anybody advising them. They don't understand home inspections. They don't understand what they can ask for. They don't understand the legal ramifications of choices. They don't understand a lot of things because there's no one there to explain it to them. And if the argument is, well, they'll just go with the listing agent, that's fine. You can go with the listing agent. But here's the thing, that listing agent works for the seller. So that buyer is still unrepresented. So that means that buyer is negotiating with a real estate agent that is experienced at negotiating, that understands the whole process, and that's who this buyer, maybe probably a first-time buyer, is negotiating and working with. So there's no one looking out for the best interest of the buyer. So that's very concerning. You know, look, the current model isn't perfect, and I'm not arguing that. However, the way the model has worked is that buyer has representation so that they have an opportunity to have somebody negotiate on their behalf, guide them through the process, and look out for them in general. Under the new model, without representation, that buyer will not have that, and that buyer is less likely to have a successful transaction. So not only will the buyer get hurt, but also the seller. So let me explain how the seller will get hurt. Because that buyer does not have someone guiding them through the process, that buyer is less likely to close escrow on that property, more likely to cancel because they don't understand the process, they get cold feet, they don't have somebody to coach them through it. So that means that seller will then take longer to get their home sold. It does not necessarily mean that seller will get less money for the property, but that seller may take longer to sell his property because he'll go through more buyers. The current cancellation rate for buyer transactions in Clark County is 30%. That means that 30% of all the homes that have accepted offers, the buyer, for whatever reason, backs out, either because they get cold feet, the inspections weren't great, they didn't qualify for financing, they didn't like the HOA docs, whatever that is. So 30% fallout. Now the fallout rate without a buyer's agent to explain, guide, and reassure is clearly going to be higher. So that's another thing that I don't think that has been considered in this as far as how the public is going to be harmed going forward. So I've addressed a lot of how the buyer's going to be harmed, but these are some realistic harms for sellers as well.
Okay, here's another. I thought this was really interesting. For the average priced American home for sale, $417,000. Sellers are paying more than $25,000 in brokerage fees. Period. Sellers are paying more than $25,000 in brokerage fees. That's when they sign the listing agreement, right? And they agree to pay 4, 5, 6, whatever percent was agreed, or flat fee or whatever. They're just saying that's the high end, right? That's if it's 6%, whatever. Then it says those costs are passed on to the buyer. So wait, comma. So let's pause at that. If the costs are passed to the buyer, does the seller still pay it? Because I've never walked into a listing presentation and said, I'm going to charge you X, and have said, oh, I don't really care. You charge me whatever you want. I'm going to pass that on to the buyer. Like, I know my house is worth $500. I'm just going to get them to pay $530, and then they'll just pay it because I mean, the house next to me just sold for $500. So I'll just sell for $530. I'll still get my $500. I'll just make them pay the commission, right? And then it says boosting the price of homes in America. So if that's the case, speaking economically, let's say it's today and you sell your house for $500,000 and you pay the current model. You pay whatever, 4, 4.5, 5, 6%. And then a year from now, we show up, Juan and I show up to list your house. So we go, hey, Mr. Seller, hey, your house. And he goes, yeah, it's worth $500,000. He goes, well, yeah, it is. But remember, that was when we were passing on those costs to the buyer. So because we're going to charge you less in commission, we're going to pass the savings on to the buyer. So your house is only worth $480 now, because now you remember the reason you paid $500 is because you were overcharging. So your house really only worth $480. So we're going to actually just give all that benefit to the buyer. Now, if you're a seller and I gave you the choice, Oana, you could sell your house for less so the buyer would benefit and be happy, or you could put $20,000 more in your pocket by selling for $500. What do you think the average seller would do?
Sellers care about that happy number at the top.
Okay.
They do. I mean, sellers care about two things: the happy number at the top and the net. But to be honest with you, at the end of the day, most people are still kind of stuck on that happy number at the top.
At a 5-ish% interest rate, a median home, 417, with some money put down, we're talking $40 a month difference in mortgage payment in that scenario. $40 a month. Is that like, oh my God, my home payment was going to be $2,800 a month. I said, I can't afford the house. Like, I can't afford to buy the house. But now because my payment's going to be $2,760. Oh my God, it's so affordable. I should get 2 of them. Like, does it really move the needle? It's less than 1 year's appreciation. It's like they're saying, hey, there's all this cost built into the system because realtors are overcharging. Here's another question I want to ask you. Let's say that there's less money to pay agents. Economically, there'd be less agents. Now, it wouldn't be agents like you and me. We do listings. We still have to list the same number of homes. It'd be less buyer agents, right? Okay. If it's less buyer agents, economically, forgetting real estate, if I'm going out to find some house cleaners, and I go and there's 30 house cleaners within a mile of my house, I have 30 people to pick from, I can probably bargain because I have more people to go see how much they are, right?
Right.
What if there's only 10 house cleaners? Does that mean I get a deal because they're going to compete even more? Why would they compete even more if there's less of them? If there's scarcity on the supply side, doesn't that mean higher prices on the demand side?
Generally speaking, yes, of course.
Okay, so the argument now can be made. What they're trying to make is a double argument. They're saying because real estate agents will make less money, they're going to compete. They're going to cut their fee even more so they can work a lot harder to get back. They'll work 4 times harder to make the same money because there'll be less of them. That doesn't make any sense, right? If there's less of them, they don't have to work that hard. Actually, we could get to a situation where you just can't, it's really hard to find an agent. Or you say, I hired an agent and they said, okay, great. When can we go look at houses? And they go, I can go in 3 weeks. That's the nearest one we have. And they go, it's like finding a doctor. Hey, I got a spot on my hand. I want to get a dermatologist. And they go, okay, hey, August 12th. And you're like, August 12th, this is March.
Pretty much.
So you think economically this hurts buyers?
I think it hurts both sides. I think it hurts the buyers more, but I think it hurts the sellers too.
I think it's a bit, first of all, it's interesting to see how this is implemented. I do think there will be, the market and economics always figures a way out. Mm-hmm. Oh, just so you guys know, this doesn't affect New York City.
Well, so there are markets where they're non-MLS markets. So
they're not realtors.
And they're not realtors. So, I want to make a distinction. So there's a distinction between realtors and real estate agents. Not all real estate agents are realtors, but all realtors are real estate agents.
It's a separate association. So right. You could own a broker. Like in New York City, there's a bunch of brokerages. They're not members of NAR. They don't belong to the National Association of Realtors. They're just a real estate company. I don't know specific examples. Some of them have joined NAR because they want to have franchises. But there's probably like, I don't know, Guido Canacci real estate services, and all they do is leasing and they do some sales. And they're not NAR members. They're real estate agents. They charge commissions. Everybody signs an agreement to pay commissions. They don't have an MLS. In New York City, they have this other thing that's non-MLS. They can do whatever they want in that because this NAR settlement doesn't affect them. They can still do this current model if they want. Here's the problem. If you're a seller, you are unable now to offer a commission to another thing. They're taking a choice away from a seller. So I want to pay the commission. I want to get as many people looking. You're only going to get the people who have hired an agent and have an agent helping them. The other people that are trying to figure this out themselves, you're probably not going to see them. And economically now, what happens to prices of homes if you're selling and you're trying to get as much money? If you have a smaller pool of people trying to purchase the house, does that make you able to sell it for more because a smaller number of people are going to compete even harder? Or how's that work? Like if you get one offer or 5 offers, which do you generally make more money when you sell the house? Generally
5 offers.
Okay, so if you have less people trying to buy your house because they didn't go to your little marketplace where it's for sale because it's not part of because we don't have to belong to NAR anymore. We can just put it on our company website, right?
Yes, it's a tough thing. Look, I agree with Todd. The market will figure out a way because water runs downhill, right? So, yeah, the market will figure it out. It's going to be messy probably for the next couple of years. There may be new models that emerge that maybe are better. Maybe they're better for the consumers, for the agents, for everybody, and I would love to see that. So it's going to be a very interesting and exciting time to watch to see what happens with the real estate industry on this end, and we're looking forward to it. We will be around, and we hope that you stick around too and keep watching our videos. We appreciate you watching the video.
One more thing.
Oh, what?
Okay, so we'll be around because, like I said, we just mainly do listings. And just so you guys know, we've had friends and family, people like that we've sold houses for and stuff. And commissions have always been negotiable. Mm-hmm. You can Google sell your house for 1%, mm-hmm. sell your house for $1,000 in any market, and you can find people that'll do it. So this mm-hmm. idea that you're forced to pay this set amount is actually not true. But here's the thing I want to sort of point out. I'm an agent who works with buyers. I would work for free for 3 or 4 people because the 5th or maybe or 6th one, the payoff. Mm-hmm. Okay, if I'm no longer guaranteed to get paid and I have to negotiate my commission, I'm going to do a buyer-broker agreement mm-hmm. with a client. What else am I going to do potentially? Something that lawyers do. So that what if they don't buy? Because remember, I can't rely on the 4th person or 5th person that finally successfully buys a house to fully compensate me. I have to get money from every single person.
Right. So I think we're going to possibly see retainers and then a fee schedule. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to buy a house. And you're going to come to us and say, hey, I want to buy a house. We say, great, fantastic. Here's how the process works. It's a $10,000 retainer. For the $10,000, we're going to show you up to 7 homes. We will write up to 3 offers. We will attend up to two home inspections. So there's going to be a whole catalog of things how that works. And that's what you get for $10,000. Okay? That's the way this is going to work. Because whether you ever buy a house or not from us, it's really not relevant to us. What's relevant to us is that you've agreed to pay us this amount and this is how it's going to be spent. If you don't use our services, or if you decide to go with another agent or whatever, depending on how that retainer agreement is drafted, that might be non-refundable, or a portion of it may be refundable, however that works. But as a buyer, you're going to have to come in with money on the front end. And whether you buy a house or not, we are no longer incentivized to have you buy a house. We maybe will work out an agreement saying, hey, it's a $10,000 retainer, and then we'll negotiate further compensation from the offer. And if we negotiate how much money we negotiate, that $10,000 that you paid us is credited against whatever other compensation we get. So all kinds of interesting things. There will be lots of models out there, like I said, and this may be one of them.
The current model is very simple. Seller picks an amount to offer, and agents compete to sell the house because they want to make money. And if there's not that offer of compensation, if they're going to have to work even harder to even get paid, then look, you can always take your house, put it on Zillow as a FSBO, and just say, hey, everybody, I'm selling my house. Why don't you come? And
there are flat fee brokerages out there.
Fat? Did you say fat?
I did. I meant to say flat. There are flat fee brokerages out there that will also put your house on the MLS. So you would have equal exposure to everybody else. And they put in the MLS, hey, contact the seller directly and negotiate your offer with them, because all they do is put the house in the MLS. So there are lots of different models out there right now. So, the article's point was that those models don't have traction. Well, perhaps they don't have traction because their results don't bear the fruit that a full-service real estate brokerage will offer.
If there was so much money in real estate and the industry was rolling, most brokerages lose money, and agents were rolling in money, a model would have shown up, some startup would have come up and figured out how to crack the egg and extract all the value.
Okay, Open Door tried that.
And they have never made money. Open Door's only lost money.
Zillow has tried it.
Yeah.
And they haven't done well with it either. So there are lots of people that have been trying to wiggle their way into the industry to make money, and they haven't. The model that we've had up to now has been the most efficient and effective and has served buyers and sellers the best. I'm not saying it's the best model. I'm saying it was the best thing we had thus far. So it'll be interesting to see how things evolve. Stick with us. Keep watching our videos. We appreciate you watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video. It's an interesting video, so you might have some friends or family or coworkers that might like to watch it and have the whole thing explained. So somebody might thank you. So, and we would certainly thank you if you share the video.
If you're going to sell your house in Las Vegas, give us a call. Put our information in the description. Anywhere in the country, we have a network of agents through Referral Cloud.
Not NAR.
Not NAR. It's Referral Cloud. It's not NAR. It has nothing to do with NAR. It's a startup. And if you're buying a house anywhere in the country, you can go to agentrefund.com and get up to 0.5% back. The commission back is in the form at closing. You get cash.
Right. All right. So fun times. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us love comments about real estate, of course. And we look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.